The grand battle came to an end, and peace settled in. With the conclusion of the Bloodline tournament, the shockwaves through the Futu ancient clan gradually subsided. Although the position of Grand Elder had changed hands, Qing Yinjing's strength and prestige were more than enough to match the role. So, aside from the large disturbances from the Xian lineage and Ink lineage, the entire Futu ancient clan was slowly accepting this new reality. The major powers who had come to observe the event stayed for several days before gradually departing. It could be imagined that after their departure, the events within the Futu ancient clan would surely spread throughout the entire Great Thousand Worlds. By then, Mu Chen's name would undoubtedly echo far and wide. Although the grand drama within the Futu ancient clan was concluded by Qing Yinjing, it was Mu Chen's performance throughout the process that had left everyone in awe. With only the initial spiritual grade strength, he single-handedly defeated numerous elders from the Xian lineage. In the end, relying on the clan protection array's power, he suppressed more than 70 or 80% of the elders in the Futu ancient clan, forcing the Saint-grade expert, Futu Xian, to intervene. Such a record was nothing short of shocking. On a mountaintop in the Futu realm, a vast and serene manor stood, adorned with stone pavilions, artificial mountains, streams, and the sound of birds and flowers in bloom. The place was undeniably special. This was one of the best places to host guests in the Futu ancient clan, and now it had become Mu Chen's temporary residence. After the Bloodline tournament ended, an elder from the clan came to forcibly move Mu Chen from his previous ordinary courtyard to this place. With a face full of flattering smiles, even Mu Chen couldn't bring himself to slap such a smiling face. Clearly, this change was due to Qing Yinjing's new position as Grand Elder. In the past, even though Mu Chen wasn't of a criminal background, with his strength as a heavenly supreme at the spiritual grade, he would never have attracted too much attention from the Futu ancient clan. But now, things were different. Qing Yinjing had been freed and had transformed into the holder of the highest power within the Futu ancient clan. The clan's elders now dared not show any neglect toward Mu Chen, and the treatment he received was nothing short of what would be given to his saint-grade heavenly supreme. However, Mu Chen remained remarkably calm about this treatment. If you wish to give it, then I won't refuse. If not, that's fine too. After all, even though his mother had become the Grand Elder, there was still a certain distance between him and the Futu ancient clan, so he didn't have any desire to leverage their prestige. After all these years, he had lived fine without the Futu ancient clan. Mu Chen, my young friend, the Bloodline tournament is now over, and we must return. We're here to say our farewells. In the manor, Yao Chen and Lin Diao, accompanied by Xiao Xiao and Lin Jing, said with smiles. They had come to the Futu ancient clan simply to support Mu Chen. Now that he was safe, it was naturally time for them to take their leave. Mu Chen's expression turned serious as he cupped his hands and said with sincerity, I would like to thank both of you seniors. Also, please convey a message to the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor. This time, I, Mu Chen, owe a favor to the Boundless Fire Domain and the Martial Realm. Yu Chen and Lin Diao nodded with smiles. They understood that Xiao Yin and Lin Dong were investing in Mu Chen, seeing his potential and believing that one day he would stand at the peak of the Great Thousand Worlds. After the events at the Futu ancient clan, Yu Chen and Lin Diao began to share that belief. With Mu Chen's abilities, given time, he might truly reach such heights. In the Great Thousand Worlds, not everyone had the right to owe the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor a favor. But Mu Chen clearly had that privilege. They were actually planning to come personally, but recently, the extraterritorial evil clan has been making moves. Both the Boundless Fire Domain and the Martial Realm have stationed forces at the edge of the Great Thousand Worlds, always on alert and unwilling to split their attention, Yao Chen and Lin Diao explained. Upon hearing this, Mu Chen's expression tightened slightly. After all, the extraterritorial evil clan was the greatest enemy of the Great Thousand Worlds, and he had seen their cruelty in the lower dimension. The Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor truly uphold high principles. They are both admirable and worthy of respect. Standing beside Mu Chen, Qing Yinjing also took the opportunity to come and bid farewell, speaking softly, please also relay a message to the Flame Emperor and Martial Ancestor. The Futu ancient clan is willing to form a bond with them. If there is ever an opportunity for future cooperation, and if the extraterritorial evil clan shows signs of movement, please notify the Futu ancient clan immediately. Hearing these words, both Lin Diao and Yao Chen's expressions grew more solemn. Unlike Mu Chen, Qing Yinjing's words truly represented the Futu ancient clan, one of the 5 ancient clans, whose influence rivaled that of the boundless fire domain in the martial realm. Such a level of goodwill would undoubtedly be appreciated even by the Flame Emperor and the martial ancestor. We will definitely relay the First Elder's message, both Lindio and Yao Chen said. Hey, Mu Chen, make sure to come visit the martial realm when you have the chance. But next time we meet, I'll definitely have reached the Heavenly Supreme level. Lin Jing said, somewhat reluctant, but still clenching her small fist and speaking cheerfully to Mu Chen. Mu Chen smiled and said, you'll definitely make it. Lin Jing's talent was actually not much weaker than his own. It was just that her personality made it difficult for her to experience life and death trials as he did. Otherwise, she would surely surpass geniuses like Xian Luo and Moxin from the Futu ancient clan. I was originally planning to challenge you when I saw you had reached the Heavenly Supreme level, but after watching the Bloodline tournament, I realized I'd just be embarrassing myself. Now I finally understand why my father values you so much, because, like him, you're a monster, Xiao Xiao said, her watery eyes fixed on Mu Chen, speaking seriously. Mu Chen's forehead twitched with a vein popping up. Was it really okay to call your father a monster? Yao Chen and Lin Diao both smiled. Then, after Qing Yinjing exchanged her goodbyes with Mu Chen, they waved their sleeves, gathering the spirit light that enveloped Xiao Xiao and Lin Jing, and soared into the sky. Goodbye, Mu Chen, until we meet again. As their laughter echoed through the sky, the spirit light vanished into the horizon. Mu Chen stood still, watching the light fade away. Xun'er, the Flame Emperor and martial ancestor, are both titans of this world. Although they come from lower dimensions, their talents are unmatched, surpassing all the heroes in the Great Thousand Worlds. Their vision is extremely high, and only a few can catch their eye. The fact that you have befriended them makes your mother proud, Qing Yinjing said, reaching out her jade hand to gently ruffle Mu Chen's hair, a smile playing on her lips. Indeed, the two seniors are exceptional figures of our time, Mu Chen agreed wholeheartedly. After interacting with the Flame Emperor and martial ancestor multiple times, he had come to realize the charm they possessed. However, Xun'er, you're not far behind. Given time, you two will be on equal footing with them, Qing Yinjing said. Then I'll count on your good words, mother. Mu Chen smiled, then, with impatience, said, Mother, when will we return to the Northern Spirit Realm? Father's been waiting for over 20 years for this day. Although, now that they were in the Futu ancient clan, no one dared to provoke him, and everyone treated him with great respect. Mu Chen didn't want to stay here for long. What he wanted most was to take Qing Yinjing back to the small Northern Spirit Realm. Although the Northern Spirit Realm was insignificant compared to the Tianluo continent or the Futu ancient clan, it held an irreplaceable place in Mu Chen's heart. He grew up there, and it was where he had made his resolve to step into the Great Thousand Worlds. At the same time, he would never forget the promise he made to his father when he left. That man, though only the ruler of the small Mu domain, had been the one to protect him as he grew up. In Mu Chen's heart, that figure was just as towering. Qing Yinjing's expression grew somewhat wistful, as if remembering that person. Her eyes softened, and she smiled gently. That guy raised my son to be like this. I suppose he hasn't disappointed me. Her voice, too, carried a deep sense of longing. Once I've settled things with the Futu ancient clan, we should be able to leave together. Qing Yinjing smiled, her eyes scanning Mu Chen before suddenly grinning. But before that, I must give you a small gift. Before Mu Chen could respond, she grabbed his arm, and with a surge of spiritual energy, enveloped them both in light. When the light dispersed, Mu Chen found himself in a completely different scene. They were in an ancient world, and within this vast expanse stood an ancient stone tower. Mu Chen wasn't unfamiliar with this ancient world and the stone tower. He had come here when he refined the sacred floating pagoda, and it was also where he had nearly been captured by Futu Xian. Mother. However, Mu Chen couldn't understand why Qing Yinjing had brought him here. In the Futu ancient clan, anyone who attains the Heavenly Supreme level is qualified to enter the Ancestral Tower and absorb ancestral qi, allowing their pagoda to undergo a second enhancement, Qing Yinjing said with a gentle smile. Mu Chen was taken aback, then scratched his head awkwardly. Isn't that a bit much? Qing Yinjing's explanation was simple, but Mu Chen understood the value behind it. Even within the Futu ancient clan, few had access to such an opportunity. And truthfully, he wasn't even fully considered a member of the clan. Qing Yinjing, however, only responded indifferently. Now that I am the first elder, if I say you can, then you can. Besides, this is something the Futu ancient clan owes you. Over the years, they've made things difficult for you. This is their compensation. Seeing her rare assertiveness, Mu Chen let out a bitter laugh. After a slight hesitation, he finally nodded. All right, then thank you, Mother. He knew how rare it was to enhance the sacred floating pagoda a second time. With the opportunity now laid before him, letting it pass would indeed be a waste. Inside the ancient ancestral tower. The tower seemed to encompass endless realms. At this moment, Chen sat cross-legged in the void, gazing upward. Spirit light flickered in his eyes as he took in the distant, ancient glow beyond the void. The entire space was saturated with a boundless, desolate aura. This tower holds the deepest foundation of the Futu ancient clan, passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. Every first elder, before passing, comes here to release their spiritual energy, merging it into the tower. Over time, the ancestral tower has gained unimaginable power, Qing Yinjing said solemnly beside him. If the ancestral tower were to unleash its full might, even a saint-grade heavenly supreme would be killed on the spot. Chen's expression turned serious at her words. After all, a heavenly demon emperor was comparable to a saint-grade heavenly supreme, and yet 3 of them had been slain during the invasion by the extraterritorial evil clan, all thanks to the power of the tower. In simple terms, this ancestral tower is a peerless sacred artifact. Even among saint-grade ones, it ranks at the very top. Chen nodded slightly. He had once seen the 8 ancestors glazed bowl crafted by the martial ancestor, another saint-grade peerless sacred artifact. Even after taking a furious blow from Futu, it hadn't shattered, only been flung away. That alone was testament to its strength. Yet clearly, this ancestral tower surpassed it. Chen believed it might be among the strongest saint-grade peerless sacred artifacts in all of the great thousand worlds. In a moment, I'll summon the descent of the ancestral chi. Do your best to receive it. Right now, your sacred floating pagoda is already top tier among ordinary peerless sacred artifacts, but it hasn't even reached the spiritual grade. Hopefully, with this enhancement, it can reach a higher level, Qing Yinjing said with a soft smile. Chen's heart stirred. He was fully aware of the pagoda's significance. Not only could it seal power, but it could also convert spiritual energy into the more potent and refined crystal spiritual energy. This was the core reason why, as a spirit-grade heavenly supreme, he could challenge an immortal-grade heavenly supreme. Otherwise, purely based on spiritual energy, he would be utterly outmatched. If the pagoda could be enhanced again, the benefits would be immeasurable. All right. He nodded solemnly, anticipation in his eyes. Qing Yinjing said no more. Forming a seal with her jade-like fingers, she triggered a tremor through the void. A deep, ancient hum resonated, echoing through space. Chen looked up and saw strands of ancient aura piercing the void, descending from above. The moment they appeared, his sacred floating pagoda began trembling wildly within him, like a starving man encountering a feast. Without him even activating it, holy light surged from his crown. The crystalline sacred floating pagoda emerged on its own, swelling rapidly until it stood tens of thousands of feet tall in mere moments. It shimmered with billions of rays of holy light, drawing in the descending ancient aura and swallowing it whole. As each strand entered, the pagoda's light surged and dimmed alternately, its radiance growing deeper and more refined. At the same time, the originally massive sacred floating pagoda seemed to be refined, as if impurities were being purged during its absorption and exhalation. Its towering body gradually began to shrink. As it shrank, the holy light emanating from the sacred floating pagoda became even purer, and an ancient aura flowed outside the tower. Chen noticed the changes in the sacred floating pagoda and slowly closed his eyes, entering a deeper state of cultivation. He felt that as the sacred floating pagoda exhaled ancient energy, an overwhelming amount of spiritual power was being absorbed into his body. Standing nearby, Qing Yinjing observed this scene, a faint smile appearing on her face before she slowly vanished into the void. Chen's cultivation lasted for a full month. When Qing Yinjing reappeared in this void space a month later, she gazed at the scene before her with a look of pleasant surprise on her face. At this moment, Chen was still meditating in the void, but the once towering sacred floating pagoda, which had been 10,000 feet tall, now appeared no larger than the size of a palm, floating above his head, continuously absorbing strands of ancient energy. The sacred floating pagoda had not only shrunk in size, but its once crystal-clear color now carried a sense of heaviness, radiating an ancient aura. At this point, the sacred floating pagoda no longer appeared to be formed from spiritual energy, but seemed to have been condensed to the utmost, resembling a true crystal tower. Radiant halos swirled around it, mysterious and profound. Moreover, the pagoda now emitted a subtle yet extremely powerful spiritual fluctuation, as though it were a true top-tier peerless sacred artifact. According to Qing Yinjing's estimation, the sacred floating pagoda in Mu Chen's possession had now reached the quality of a spiritual-grade peerless sacred artifact. However, this was still not its limit. Qing Yinjing could sense that the sacred floating pagoda was trembling, emitting a greedy aura as it continued to consume the ancient energy. This was a sign that the pagoda sought further strength. But because the ancient energy being absorbed was not particularly powerful, the strengthening process had slowed down. Since Xun'er has this ability, as your mother, I naturally must lend a helping hand, Qing Yinjing said with a smile. If it were any other elder, she would not have paid attention, because the ancestral qi within the ancestral tower was extremely precious. Only those with significant contributions could access it. But Qing Yinjing was not someone who adhered strictly to rules, and in her opinion, although ancestral qi was precious, it would be a waste if it remained unused. It was better to put it to good use. With a flick of her jade finger, the void trembled, and the strands of ancient energy that had been descending became much denser, continuously flowing down and pouring into the palm-sized crystal tower. Boom, boom. As the ancestral qi poured in, the sacred floating pagoda immediately began to shake violently. The small tower burst forth with an endless divine light, heavy like the earth, as if it could suppress all things. Qing Yinjing could also see ancient inscriptions beginning to appear on the tower, ancient and profound. Boom. When the ancient inscriptions covered the entire tower, the crystal pagoda shook, and its brilliance was so intense that Qing Yinjing had to squint her eyes. The light lasted for a while before gradually fading. The sacred floating pagoda silently floated above Mu Chen's head, its light subdued, now ancient and heavy. It was engraved with ancient runes, and an indescribable sensation spread from it, causing the void itself to tremble. Mu Chen, who had kept his eyes closed for a month, finally opened them. He extended his hand, and the floating pagoda descended, landing gently into his palm. Holding the crystal tower, Mu Chen's gaze was intense as he could feel the immense power contained within it. Based on his estimate, the sacred floating pagoda now likely rivaled the Heavenly Emperor's sword he had once received in terms of power. Although the Heavenly Emperor's sword had residual energy from the past, it had been one of his trump cards. Now, the sacred floating pagoda, even if not as powerful as the Heavenly Emperor's sword at its peak, was undoubtedly nearing that level. Moreover, the most important part was that over the course of this month, the sacred floating pagoda had replenished him with a vast amount of spiritual power. Once this power was absorbed into his body, Mu Chen realized that his strength had once again advanced, reaching the mid-spiritual grade. As expected of the sacred floating pagoda, drawing upon the power of ancestral qi, it's reached such an astonishing level, Qing Yinjing said with quiet awe from the side. At this moment, the sacred floating pagoda had already attained the quality of an immortal-grade supreme artifact. Even among immortal-grade heavenly supremes, possessing such an artifact was a rarity. In fact, many who had just ascended to the saint grade only wielded an immortal-grade supreme artifact themselves. That alone showed its tremendous value. An artifact of this caliber could allow even a perfect Earth Supreme to contend with a spirit-grade heavenly supreme. It's all thanks to Mother, Mu Chen said with a cheerful smile. He knew very well that without his mother's control over the ancestral tower and her generous supply of the precious ancestral qi, cultivating the sacred floating pagoda to this level would have taken him far longer. Qing Yinjing smiled softly. The ancestral qi would only go to waste left unused here. Since you have the ability, there's no harm in letting you use it. But remember, this treasure ultimately belongs to the Futu ancient clan. Today you benefited from its fortune. In the future, if the clan faces danger, you should lend your strength. She knew Mu Chen held no fondness for the Futu ancient clan. There was resentment buried in his heart, something she hoped to ease through this exchange. Mu Chen understood the message in her words. After a pause, he nodded. As long as nothing happens to Mother, there's nothing between me and the Futu ancient clan that can't be let go. The techniques I cultivate, and the bloodline I carry, they come from Mother. And Mother is of the Futu ancient clan. So, if one day the clan truly faces peril, I will not stand idly by. Qing Yinjing nodded, her eyes filled with relief. She reached out to gently tousle his hair, her voice warm. Since you've completed your cultivation, let's get ready to leave. Mu Chen's expression lit up with undisguised joy. All right. Seeing that rare spark of happiness on his usually composed face, Qing Yinjing couldn't help but be affected as well. A smile tugged at her lips, and her eyes shimmered with deep, unspoken affection. Inside the grand hall of the Futu ancient clan, After my departure, Elder Qing Tian will temporarily assume the position of First Elder. I'll leave behind a spirit shadow. If any urgent matters arise, report to it directly. Once I'm informed, I'll return immediately. Elders of the Futu ancient clan were gathered in the hall. Qing Yinjing scanned the crowd, her gaze pausing briefly on Xin Guang and Imo Tong. Her voice was calm, but carried an unmistakable edge. I hope that during my absence, nothing happens within the Futu ancient clan that I wouldn't want to see. Otherwise, I will not show mercy. Her eyes brushed past them like cold wind, and Xin Guang and Imo Tong stiffened, nodding hastily. They could feel the chill in her tone. If they stirred up trouble while she was away, Qing Yinjing would be sure to settle both old and new scores without hesitation. Mu Chen stood at her side, his expression calm as he looked down at the assembled elders, those who once held themselves above all. Now, before Qing Yinjing, they were docile as lambs. Behind Xin Guan and Imo Tong, Mu Chen spotted Xian Luo and Mo Xin, two former prodigies of the Futu ancient clan. But now, they shrank toward the back, avoiding his gaze entirely. They were not fools. They knew that Mu Chen had reached a realm beyond their reach. Once, they could look down on him, the so-called clan sinner, even when he stepped into the spirit grade Heavenly Supreme. Their strength and the backing of the powerful clan still made them feel untouchable. But now everything had changed. With Qing Yinjing ascending to the position of First Elder, the advantage of backing had flipped entirely. Mu Chen now stood above them in every way. And so, with no ground left to stand on, they had no choice but to retreat into silence, not daring to provoke him in the slightest. How long will the First Elder be gone? Elder Qing Tian stepped forward, speaking with great caution. You've only just assumed your position. It might not be ideal to leave for long. Other elders of the Qing bloodline looked on nervously as well. They clearly feared a repeat of the past, Qing Yinjing vanishing for decades at a time, leaving the clan behind. And if that happened, it was certain that the profound lineage and ink lineage would seize the chance to stir up chaos, plunging the clan into turmoil. Qing Yinjing understood Qing Tian's concerns. She smiled and said reassuringly, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'll keep a close eye on the clan at all times." Hearing these words, Qing Tian and the others finally let out a sigh of relief. Compared to before, Qing Yinjing had indeed become much more reserved and no longer acted so willfully. Otherwise, they really would have been left in tears. "Then we shall respectfully send off the First Elder," many of the elders said, bowing respectfully. Qing Yinjing gave a slight nod and, without saying much more, waved her cloud-like sleeves. Spiritual light surged out, enveloping Mu Chen, and in the blink of an eye, they vanished from sight. Outside a teleportation spirit array belonging to the Futu ancient clan, the figures of Qing Yinjing and Mu Chen appeared. Jingyi, Lingxi, who had been waiting here for some time, immediately stepped forward and affectionately grabbed Qing Yinjing's arm. The usually cold expression on her face was rare to see filled with the innocent smile of a little girl. "Madam," Lingxi also greeted respectfully. Qing Yinjing held Lingxi's jade-like hand and scolded playfully, still acting like a little girl. She then smiled at Lingxi. "We are all old friends, no need for so much formalities." However, Lingxi stubbornly shook his head, and seeing this, Qing Yinjing said no more. She turned to Mu Chen and said, "In the month you've been in seclusion, I had Lingxi gather some intelligence. Currently, the 100 Spirit Continent is holding the king worship ceremony. All the major forces on the continent will gather in 100 Spirit City. I believe your father will be there as well. So, let's head straight to 100 Spirit City and find him." The continent where the Northern Spirit Realm was located was, in fact, the 100 Spirit Continent. When Mu Chen left, Mu Feng had established the Northern Spirit Alliance in the Northern Spirit Realm, making it a moderately powerful faction on the 100 Spirit Continent. Therefore, Mu Chen's family would definitely attend such important events like the king worship ceremony. Mu Chen smiled and nodded at her words, agreeing without hesitation, "Then let's go." The 100 Spirit Continent was located in the northwestern direction of the Great Thousand Worlds. In this vast and boundless realm, it was just an unremarkable continent. Compared to supercontinents like the Tianluo continent, it was practically insignificant. Meanwhile, the Futu ancient clan's homeland, the Futu continent, was extremely far from the 100 Spirit Continent. Originally, with Qing Yinjing's strength, if someone held the spiritual seal she had created and crushed it on the 100 Spirit Continent, she would be able to use that trace to tear apart the space and arrive directly. However, she had obviously made no preparations for that. For Qing Yinjing, traveling was far too easy. As a Saint-grade grandmaster, constructing a teleportation spirit array was a simple matter for her. So under her guidance, Chen and the others didn't need to search for a long-distance spirit array across each continent. Instead, Qing Yinjing casually drew a temporary long-distance teleportation array, following the established route, and they arrived directly at another continent. In just 10 days, they had crossed over 100 continents and were gradually approaching the northwestern part of the Great Thousand Worlds. This speed was already incredibly fast. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, it would have taken them months to reach their destination. On a vast ocean, the four stood on the water's surface. Qing Yinjing waved her cloud sleeves, and countless spiritual seals gathered, forming a massive teleportation spirit array once more. After this teleportation, we should reach the 100th spirit continent. Upon hearing Qing Yinjing's voice, Chen and the others couldn't help but relax slightly. Their non-stop journey had finally reached its end. The four stepped into the teleportation array simultaneously, and in an instant, a burst of light erupted. The surrounding space twisted violently, and the sensation of traversing through space lasted who knows how long. When Chen and the others finally opened their eyes again, they found themselves standing before towering mountains, clearly having arrived on another continent. Qing Yinjing pressed her jade hand down, suppressing the violent spatial fluctuations. She looked at the surrounding world, and a trace of nostalgia flickered in her eyes. Then, a spark of anticipation began to stir in her heart. I wonder how that person is doing now. Let's go to 100 Spirit City. Suppressing her emotions, Qing Yinjing gave a small smile to Chen and the others, then waved her cloud sleeves, turning into a beam of spiritual light that shot upwards. Hee, it's rare to see Aunt Jing so hurried. Lingxi couldn't help but giggle and cover her mouth. I'm also curious to see what kind of great and heroic figure could make the madam so smitten, Longxi said, full of admiration. Chen's mouth twitched. Though he didn't want to demean his father, it really didn't seem like the kind of heroic figure they were imagining. He shook his head, then turned into a stream of spirit light and quickly followed after Lingxi and the others. 100 Spirit City. As the main city of the 100 Spirit Continent, 100 Spirit City stood as the grandest across the entire land. Bustling with life and unmatched in its prosperity, the city had become even more vibrant in recent days, because this was the time of the king worship ceremony. The so-called king worship ceremony was, as the name suggested, a grand ritual to pay homage to the king, more specifically, the ruler of the 100 Spirit Continent, the 100 Spirits King. As the supreme sovereign of this continent, the 100 Spirits King held absolute authority. Every power and faction across the continent was required to regularly present themselves like vassals before him, offering their tributes and respect. And so, whenever the king worship ceremony was held, 100 Spirit City became extraordinarily lively. Delegations from all corners streamed in, making the already bustling city even more glorious and full of splendor. At the heart of 100 Spirit City stood the 100 Spirit Palace. Today, within this opulent palace, the sounds of drums echoed endlessly, and the atmosphere was filled with music and celebration. In the towering grand hall at the center, waves of noise rolled through the air. Behind rows of seats, the leaders of various powers knelt respectfully, while beautiful attendants, their delicate hands holding jade flasks, flitted through the crowd like butterflies, adding to the lively scene. Everyone seated in the grand hall was a renowned leader from some powerful faction of the 100 Spirit Continent. The status of each could be seen from where they sat. The closer to the front, the stronger the faction they represented. The further back one sat, the lesser their influence. At the rear section of the hall, behind one particular set of seats, sat a small group of people. Unlike the others who were enjoying the feast and festivities, these individuals appeared uneasy and slightly tense. At the head of this group was a tall, broad-shouldered middle-aged man. His sharp features and commanding presence carried a hint of quiet authority. His face shared a faint resemblance to Chen. He was none other than Chen's father, Mu Feng. At that moment, Mu Feng frowned slightly, sighing inwardly as he glanced to the side. There, a girl sat quietly, kneeling in a poised posture that accentuated her graceful, slender figure. She had delicate, youthful features, wore a dark robe that hugged her refined silhouette, and her long black hair was tied into a simple ponytail, nothing elaborate, yet radiating an aura of energetic beauty. She sat there like a living painting, immediately catching the eyes of many in the hall, who were drawn to the elegant curves of her form. Had Chen been present, he would have been shocked to see this girl, for she was none other than Xun'er, whom he had not seen since their parting years ago at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Right now, Tang Xun'er was in a foul mood. Ever since Chen left the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy all those years ago, she had chosen to remain behind. Through years of dedication and training, and relying on her extraordinary talent, she had reached the level of 8th grade supreme. Not long ago, she had even been promoted to Vice Dean of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. After her promotion, she had taken some time off to return to the Northern Spirit Realm to visit her father. Coincidentally, her return aligned with the king worship ceremony. Since her father, Tang Shan, was accompanying Uncle Mu to 100 Spirit City, and she had always enjoyed lively events, she naturally tagged along. And that's when the trouble began. Just a few days ago, while traveling with Uncle Mu and the others, she came face to face with the 100 Spirits King. The latter had clearly taken a liking to her. Over the following days, he repeatedly made advances, which she politely rejected. Offended by her refusals, the 100 Spirits King grew dissatisfied. He had since placed restrictions on Uncle Mu and the others, obviously using this as leverage to pressure her into yielding. That was the true source of Tang Xun'er's troubled state of mind. Sighed my daughter. Behind Mu Feng, Tang Shan wore a wry smile. He looked at Tang Xun'er, who sat silently but occasionally clenched her delicate hands, and couldn't help but blame himself. It's all my fault. I never should have let you come. Tang Shan now regarded his daughter as a priceless treasure. When he had sent her to the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, he never imagined she would achieve so much. Now, having stepped into the realm of 8th grade supreme, she had become one of the strongest individuals in the entire Northern Spirit Realm. What's more, as the Vice Dean of the Academy, her status surpassed even that of Mu Feng, the current leader of the Northern Spirit Alliance. Under normal circumstances, a daughter as accomplished as hers would be a source of immense pride and joy. But now, her very excellence had drawn unwanted attention and brought them to this troubling juncture. The 100 Spirits King holds an esteemed position and has encountered many beautiful women, but when facing Tang Xun'er, the Vice Dean of the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, he still couldn't help but be deeply moved. He was even willing to resort to coercion. Mu Feng patted Tang Shan's shoulder, then said in a deep voice to Tang Xun'er, Xun'er, try to find an opportunity to leave on your own. The 100 Spirits King is proud of his status and shouldn't cause us too much trouble. At worst, he might dissolve the Northern Spirit Alliance. Mu Feng had watched Tang Xun'er grow up. She and Mu Chen were childhood sweethearts, and naturally, he didn't want to see her suffer. Tang Xun'er sighed inwardly. The 100 Spirits King was not someone with a broad heart. If she left on her own, he would definitely take it out on her father and Uncle Mu. I can't let Uncle Mu be put in danger here. How would I explain this to Mu Chen in the future? Tang Xun'er clenched her delicate hand, her eyes flashing as she made up her mind. She would find a chance to take her father and Uncle Mu to escape. As the Vice Dean of the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, she had some means of escape that could outrun the 100 Spirits King. However, if she did that, the Northern Spirit Alliance, which her father and Uncle Mu had worked so hard to build over the years, would probably be completely destroyed by the 100 Spirits King. She would also be unable to return to the Northern Spirit Realm, a place filled with many cherished memories. As Tang Xun'er was lost in thought, the atmosphere in the hall suddenly grew tense. Leaders of various factions stood up one after another, respectfully gazing toward the throne at the head of the hall. There, surrounded by many beautiful palace maids, a majestic figure emerged. He wore a golden robe, his tall frame striking, and his face remarkably handsome, though his slightly elongated eyes gave him a touch of a more delicate aura. As he moved, a powerful spiritual energy swirled around him, reaching the level of an upper earth supreme. Behind him, two elderly men in black robes followed leisurely, almost like ghosts. Long live the 100 Spirits King. When the golden-robed man appeared, all the leaders in the hall stood in unison, their voices full of respect. The scene was quite grand. The 100 Spirits King, smiling, took his seat at the throne. With a gesture of his hand, he said lightly, "Please, everyone, sit." The faction leaders bowed in gratitude before sitting down. The respectful manner of the leaders made the 100 Spirits King smile with satisfaction. He looked down at the gathered leaders with an air of royalty, his gaze eventually landing on the Northern Spirit Alliance's seat, or more precisely, on the graceful figure sitting there. Heh, Miss Xun'er, how have you been enjoying your time in 100 Spirits City? The 100 Spirits King smiled gently, completely ignoring the other leaders as he directly addressed Tang Xun'er. Tang Xun'er's expression remained calm. 100 Spirits City is bustling and prosperous, as I've seen. But as the Vice Dean of the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, I have many responsibilities, so I'm afraid I can't stay for long. Her words once again carried a hint of refusal, as well as an indirect mention of the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, clearly hoping the 100 Spirits King would tone down his advances. Hearing this, the 100 Spirits King chuckled and lightly stroked the jade cup in front of him. With a smile, he said, "To be honest, I was immediately smitten with you, Miss Xun'er. That's why I hope you can stay and join me in ruling over the 100 Spirits continent." At his words, the hall erupted in hushed murmurs. The leaders of various factions looked at Xun'er with envy. To them, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a way to rise to the top. However, Xun'er's delicate hand tightened involuntarily, her heart boiling with anger. She almost wanted to throw the drink in her hand at the 100 Spirits King's face. But she was no longer the reckless girl she once was. Taking a deep breath, her chest rising gracefully, she said, "Thank you for your affection, 100 Spirits King. However, I prefer working at the Northern Song Spiritual Academy. I hope that, considering the academy, you can overlook this matter." The 100 Spirits King smiled, playing with his jade cup. With a smile that was both knowing and teasing, he said, "Although the Northern Song Spiritual Academy is quite well known, I'm afraid it doesn't have the power to hold me back. My father is the Palace Lord of the Northern Mystic Palace, an immortal grade Heavenly Supreme. My mother is the sect leader of the 100 Flowers sect, a spirit grade Heavenly Supreme." The 100 Spirits King spoke leisurely, then turned to smile at Xun'er. "Do you think someone like me would be afraid of a mere Northern Song Spiritual Academy?" The voice of the 100 Spirits King, though tinged with amusement, instantly silenced the lively atmosphere within the hall. The leaders of the various factions trembled, their fear palpable. Although they were all aware of the 100 Spirits King's background, hearing his voice still brought an immense pressure and fear upon them. The Northern Mystic Palace, located in the northwest of the Great Thousand Worlds, was renowned far and wide. It commanded 4 continents, with the 100 Spirits continent being one of them. It could be said that the Northern Mystic Palace was the undisputed ruler of this vast region. Although the 100 Flowers sect was not as powerful as the Northern Mystic Palace, it still had a Heavenly Supreme to oversee it, making it a dominant force in its own right. Compared to the leaders in the hall, they were like ants. One breath from the Northern Mystic Palace could reduce them to dust. This was why, despite the 100 Spirits King's strength only being that of a lower Earth Supreme, he could still dominate the entire 100 Spirits continent. Even some leaders stronger than him were forced to bow and submit in his presence. This was because the 100 Spirits King had a terrifying background. Xun'er's delicate face also changed slightly, clearly feeling the tremendous pressure. Despite the surface power, the Northern Song Spiritual Academy could not compare to it. However, this did not mean that the Northern Song Spiritual Academy was a soft target. As a spiritual academy, its true strength lay not in brute force, but in the network and connections it had built over time. If the Northern Mystic Palace and the 100 Flowers sect truly wanted to destroy the Northern Song Spiritual Academy, Xun'er believed they would face considerable resistance. With a graceful motion of her hand, she slowly said, "100 Spirits King, are you really trying to force my hand?" Hearing Xun'er's words, the smile on the 100 Spirits King's handsome face faded significantly. His eyes narrowed into a dangerous arc. The entire hall fell silent. The leaders of the 100 Spirits continent's factions felt cold sweat running down their backs. They silently cursed Xun'er for being so tactless. If they angered the 100 Spirits King, there would be no good outcome. Mu Feng's expression shifted. He could feel the pressure on Xun'er. Gritting his teeth, he stood up, forcing a smile and clasping his hands toward the 100 Spirits King. "My king, please do not be angry. Xun'er is still young and inexperienced. However, she and my nephew are childhood sweethearts. My king is a person of great ambition. Why bother over a mere woman?" However, before he could finish his sentence, the 100 Spirits King shot him a cold glance. Behind him, an old man in a black robe cast a chilling gaze, stepping forward with a cold voice. "Do you have the right to speak here?" His voice was like a muffled thunderclap, shaking the entire hall. Mu Feng's words were abruptly cut off, as if struck by a powerful blow. His face turned pale, and he staggered back to his seat, a trace of blood appearing at the corner of his mouth. A terrifying spiritual pressure emanated from the black-robed elder, causing the leaders present to feel their hearts tremble. Earth Supreme Peak? They were secretly astonished. Indeed, The Hundred Spirits King had a powerful background. Although he himself was only a lower Earth Supreme, both of his guards were super strong experts at the Earth Supreme peak level. The Hundred Spirits King casually played with his jade cup, not even sparing Mufeng a glance. He coldly said, "I didn't tell you to speak. What gives you the audacity to stand up? What are you? And what is your nephew? How dare he compete with me for a woman?" Mufeng's face alternated between green and white, his fists clenched tightly in his sleeves. "Uncle Mu, are you all right?" Tang Xun'er immediately rushed over to support Mufeng, her voice filled with concern. Mufeng forced a bitter smile and shook his head. "Uncle Mu is useless." Tang Xun'er gritted her teeth, her eyes flashing. She knew she couldn't stay here much longer. First, she had to placate the Hundred Spirits King, then look for an opportunity to use a secret technique to escape with her father and Uncle Mu. As these thoughts flashed through her mind, she stood up, her eyes locking onto the Hundred Spirits King. Biting her silver teeth, she said, "Fine, I will agree to be with you." However, just as her words were about to fall, a slender hand suddenly reached out from behind her, gently covering her lips. At the same time, a familiar, cold laugh echoed through the hall, as if it carried an icy chill that made her dazed. "Xun'er, don't say anything foolish. A waste like him doesn't deserve you."